I call the Honourable Ruth Dyson.
Mr Speaker, as I've commented before on Thursday afternoons, it's an increasingly good habit of this government, and they haven't got very many, to have bills talked about on Thursday afternoon where we have common agreement. It's a very nice way to finish the parliamentary week, in my view. So I'm delighted to be standing in support of the Riccarton Racecourse Development Enabling Bill and the Riccarton Racecourse Bill. I'm also really impressed with the number of people, members of the public, who have come along to hear these two Christchurch bills. I'm sure that they suddenly heard on the news, breaking news, that these bills were going to be debated, and have come into Parliament to support the progress. So these two bills, which, as the member who's just resumed his seat correctly acknowledged, have been sensibly brought in tandem, proposed to develop 38 hectares of the Riccarton Racecourse in Christchurch for housing. About 600 homes are proposed to be developed under the process set out under the bill. Can I acknowledge, first of all, the Canterbury Jockey Club? My colleague Dr Megan Woods is a historian and has outlined the history of this great club extraordinarily well, so I won't go into further detail on that other than to just acknowledge them. I also want to acknowledge Megan Woods as the local MP responsible for this area. She clearly has better luck in the racing business than her colleague Grant Robertson, certainly better than me. My horse is still racing, I think, actually. The last time I put a bet on, hasn't quite completed the race yet. But also I want to acknowledge the way that Dr Woods has led and supported the community discussion around this. This is not an easy thing for people to just have imposed on them, so she has ensured that local people have had their voices heard in the establishment of the plan that drove the need for this legislation. But I'm sure she'll also be encouraging people to make submissions, so that if there are changes that can be made, particularly in terms of people's access in and out of their own homes, the amenities that have operated within that area in the future, any of those issues can be resolved during the Select Committee process. And I want to also acknowledge the Minister, Dr Nick Smith, for bringing this legislation to the House. So the bill revokes the reserve status of this part of the Riccarton Racecourse. It enables the board to develop residential properties. It requires a portion of the residential development to be affordable, and I just want to correct Mr Simpson's maths. It's proposed that 30% of the houses are affordable, which is around $450,000. Not sure that affordable and $450,000 work for everyone. They certainly don't work for me. But actually, Mr Simpson said that most of the houses will be affordable. 30% is less than 50%, which is half, so it's not most. Most is more than half, 30% is less than half. So a third of the proposed 600 will be affordable. I don't think that $450,000 is affordable, and I would really be supportive of a larger percentage of this development being in the genuinely affordable area. And as Mr Simpson again correctly pointed out, there is a process for the Ngāi Tahu first right of refusal provisions under the treaty settlement to be dealt with as part of this move to have residential property allowed. Mr Speaker, I just want to speak on a slightly tangential topic, but I'd really encourage the Local Government and Environment Select Committee, which is where this bill is proposed to be referred, to consider the point that is also being discussed at the Government Administration Committee at the moment in relation to another bill in the name of Dr Nick Smith, but it has exactly the same provision in this bill. So Dr Smith has brought two bills to the House which change or amend the status of a very old trust, which has been established under a single Act of Parliament. That's how things were done in those days, and my proposal is that they needn't be done in a continuing way by a single Act of Parliament in the future. I don't think that it's any longer necessary to have Acts of Parliament to proceed with these issues. So that's the challenge that I'd put to the chairperson of the Local Government Environment Select Committee, and we could have joint meetings with our Select Committee to discuss this point, because we're going to try and progress it. It raises the question of the legal status of boards of trustees. So in this bill, in these bills, the board has been established under the 1878 Act, and it's simply continued under this legislation. There are minimal requirements for that board under clauses 5, 6, 11 and 12. In my view, there is potential for the Board of Trustees to become an incorporated society. That way, its actions would be within the established body of public law, rather than by a single Act of Parliament. In 1878, when this board was established, that was the way things were done. But my challenge to LGE Committee and to the whole of Parliament is, in 2015, is this still the best way to do things? My research shows that there's about a dozen Acts of Parliament that have provisions in relation to racecourses. Most of them are in the South Island. Heaven only knows why that's the case. But I consider that this bill should trigger a review of the status of their governance arrangements. So, Mr Speaker, with those concerns about the definition of affordability, about the low percentage of houses within this 600 house development required to be affordable, and with my challenge of the status of individual bills in Parliament, I commend and support the progress of this bill.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I rise to take a short call on the Riccarton